What will digital content look like in 5 years' time? Welcome, everyone, to the final episode of Season 3 of the Value for Value podcast. You've got your host here, Kyrin, from the Mere Models book reviews as well. But this is the Value for Value show where we help digital content creators connect with their audience and be able to monetize at the same time, avoiding the corrupting influence that I believe of advertising, and not even just corrupting. I think it's actually going to die. And that's why I'm going to lay out my ideas here for season 3 of the Value for Value podcast, my vision of the future, V4V vision of the future. So what we're going to do with this is have a look back at what we've learned in these last episodes of season 3. I think we did about 18 or 19, which is about as usual. That's typically how many I do in a season. We're going to watch me get hyped up about the possibilities of what I think is going to happen in the future, and then even work together to shape this very show for season 4 and what's going to come up with that. Before we do that, though, let's go over what we've learned from season 3. So just as a quick reminder as well, season 1 was all about the philosophy of value for value, the first learnings of it, how it interacts, how it's different from advertising or paywalls or sponsorships and things like that. Season 2 was really looking at particular podcasts and how they were interacting and using value for value and making this work for their shows. And then season 3, well, boy, did I go off course a bit. So my original plan was to follow the 18 chapters that I had set up when I made the episode 394 of the Mere Mortals, which was all about, kind of Bitcoin, value for value, and podcasting, RSS. However, I didn't stick to the letter of that. I think I did kind of reasonably well, probably stuck to about half of them, but other cool topics that came up and I just had to cover them. So I'd say what we most learned from this was the foundation of everything that we're doing here is the most critical. So if you go back to episodes 39 to roughly 44 of this very podcast, so these had titles like The 4 Properties, What is a Podcast, The Emergence of Podcasting 2.0, Micropayments Actually Work, Boostergram Messages, things like this. These were the kind of philosophy of the underpinnings. So we learned about the 4 properties. These were decentralization, self-sovereignty, being permissionless, and value transfer, and how these work together to create these abilities to have micropayments, to have splits, why a podcast is valuable, for example. So this was really focusing on those three-letter acronyms: RSS, V4V, and BTC. So this was, I suppose, the main thing that I wanted to get across for this season 3. What these 3 things were, and why they were so important. So that was really at the start of it. Then when we got into the later episodes, this is 45 to 55, even this one, I guess, to 56. These were a mixture of philosophy. So this is when we were talking about open source and value for value concepts, such as in episode 51, the open source revolution is upon us, 47, common V4V misconceptions, 54, how to ask for support, things like this. We then got on to more of the implementation. So these were the podcasting 2.0 apps and the value time split. So this was when I did episode 53, the run through of the podcasting 2.0 apps, and some of the kind of like statistics and things like this, the V4V music, how to access V4V music in 45 and 46. And then finally, where we are at this moment with V4V music, with video, with podcasting 2.0 statistics, and with text. And so that kind of filled out the rest of this and some other little bits, such as like the incentives of hosting and mini case examples that I've done. So there's quite a few things. This was just to say, as like a reminder, all of this only works because of RSS, Bitcoin, and value for value, and how they interact and merge together. So the interesting thing about this is, I suppose, I didn't get too deep into it, but these are not affected by external things. So the whims of technology, so AI, for example, that's not going to make RSS obsolete. If anything, AI creations are going to make their way into the mechanism, the distribution mechanism that is RSS. The economic decisions of any one government. So this is where money printer go brr in some countries. This is where fiscal things are happening. Money is getting debased. People are feeling inflation, costs are rising, and things like this. None of that really matters to Bitcoin. So, which is why, okay, we're layering this on top of the distribution. And then we have the kind of cultural sways of what is hot or not, and who is oppressed, and cancel culture, and what's going to go happen here, and this person said a bad thing. Once again, value for value is a countermeasure to that, because you're not relying on one sponsor, which is very much influenced by the whims of the crowd or the mob, or a advertiser, or even a suite of social apps which will kick you off if you do or don't say a certain thing. So that's pretty much what we covered in all of this. Why it's important to have RSS, why it's important to have Bitcoin on top of this, and then why value for value is the kind of trifecta and the merging of these three things. So that's, I suppose, what I tried to convey here in season 3. My value for value vision of the future. So that's very much, I guess, like the past leading up to the present. What do I think is coming for the future? So I kind of want to paint a picture here of a combining of all digital mediums. So the ability to create is only ever expanding. And so creating an amazing AI image, which a lot of people are now able to do through things like Midjourney, and then just posting it on Instagram, I just don't think it's going to cut it. So what do I kind of see happening for the future? Well, RSS, for example, all of the current platforms, I believe, are so limiting for collaboration. So sure, you can have some people where it's like, I put my music on TikTok, and then a girl can dance to this music and create an interesting thing. But all of these kind of platforms that exist for distribution of digital content, so I'm really thinking of the social platforms here, they don't play nicely with each other. And I was talking about this recently in one of the recent episodes about how if I wanted to have a shorts video, I had to go individually and post it on each platform. And that's because, once again, advertising is this kind of thing that just layers down and creates all of these weird incentives. So I think RSS actually allows for a lot more collaboration. And I think we're going to really see this with a merging of these digital mediums, where people who are more expertise in text can combine with someone who is more expertise in audio. And how is this going to work? Well, I think the incentives to work together are actually going to align. So this is where it comes to Bitcoin and all of these old ones. There was no incentive to work together, because how can you get paid, and then how can you know there's going to get a split? So sure, you can get a token on TikTok of an ice cream emoji or things like this. Same thing on YouTube, where sure, you can get some money, but it's only going to one account. You're not able to split it up, even if you've got another person on your show and things like this. This is where we're really getting into the nuts and bolts of, okay, if it's direct peer-to-peer, and if you can create splits, it just takes away so much bullshit. It takes away the middlemen, and it has these incentives where, oh, okay, I'm actually putting my work out here, and I can focus completely and solely on the art of what I'm creating for an amazing experience for my audience, and then I can just I can get paid for that via my audience. It's so much more of a direct interaction. I think the incentives make it so that you are going to create better art. You're going to create, and when I say art, I'm really encompassing everything here. I'm including podcasts, I'm including text, I'm including videos, I'm including music, I'm including pictures, I'm including whatever it is that you can imagine that you want to create. It's just being able to do that, and then having people directly be able to reward you for that without having to do all this bullshit with advertising, which once again is getting onto the value for value portion. I really just think advertising is going to shrivel with direct peer-to-peer payments. It just, everything lines up and makes it so that there's no incentives to have advertising. Well, like the incentives, advertising for me always seems like a workaround. It always seems like an indirect way of monetizing your audience, which is what it is. You are it's not like advertisers are paying you just because they really want to put this thing on your show. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to make a better show if I have if I have an ad for mattresses in there. This is what I really think is going to happen. No, they're doing it so that their audience can pay them, and then they can pay you. So what would happen if your audience can just pay you? It just makes so much more sense. So this is where I really think my V4V vision of the future is it's just going to take away. People are getting sick of dealing with hearing advertisers on their podcasts. I'm absolutely certain of that. But once again, I think this is moving on beyond just podcasting and is going to a value for value, expanding out into all of these digital mediums. And so you might say, like, Kyrin, what are you smoking? Are you smoking crack here? And no, because it's already happening. So let me list off a couple examples. We have Cole McCormick, who is the host of the America Plus podcast. He is creating. He's very much a visual person by nature and a videographer who just happens to have created a podcast. And he's creating a film called Magic Mushroom Funtime. And what he's going to do is he's going to put value for value music in, and he's selected 3 songs, and these are going to be core to, I guess, the experience that he's creating. He's using a mixture of, I believe, like in real life filming of him and his girlfriend and visuals created through Midjourney to create a video. And then he's going to blend this all together. And hopefully he'll maybe with my help be able to figure out how to create this into a video podcast to then enable payments to be able to go out to the value for value musicians who are used in it, to himself and his girlfriend who acted in it, maybe into me if I help him out with all of this. So it's like, okay, well, this is where video is starting to merge in with audio and V4V music. We have the Behind the Schemes. I've talked about this podcast a couple of times. They are the most wacky, craziest podcast experience you will ever see. And there was this one time where I remember they were creating GIFs, or GIFs, however you pronounce that, to put in their chapter art. So essentially, when you were listening to the podcast, you were kind of actually getting a video experience in a much smaller, compressed format because they were using GIFs. And when one chapter finished, the next one would start, and then the next GIF would start. So they were able to kind of create a little video here. Once again, it's different. It's not. It's a different medium what they're doing over there. With, once again, they're putting music in, value for value. Abel and the Wolf, the first V4V musicians to create a full album dedicated to and utilizing all the technology that was available at the time. So this was roughly 2 years ago in Christmas. Their album art was created by people who enjoyed their music or who wanted to help contribute to what they were doing. And they got a split. So once again, okay, now we're seeing people who are much better at more the visual art being able to interact with the musician and once again kind of get paid for it. We see Dreb Scott, someone who maybe doesn't have particular skills in videography or audio, or who is not particularly a creator themselves. He is creating chapters for multiple shows in the post-production stage, and he's adding his own spin into the art to be able to create something that is different, that is new, that is valuable, and he is also getting rewarded for it. Okay, well, now we're seeing people who maybe aren't on the highest end of the creativity spectrum, and I very much put myself on that as well, being able to help contribute and participate in a digital medium. Let's look at the Dorfels. So into the Dorfelverse, this is a family of 10 brothers and one sister, or 9 brothers and one sister of 10 kids who are musicians. It's like the epitome of what I imagine like the rural South America to be. And they've created a podcast together to showcase the music, to talk about what they were doing with their music. They play live music on this podcast. I can boost into it, and it's a way for them to highlight, to showcase what is going on with all of their old catalog and bring it into this new medium, into this new world, because they're sick of Spotify and they're sick of what they would call the exploitive nature of it, where you put your music up and you get nothing in reward, or you get a pittance, like from Spotify. Here's some money in my spit. Take it. We have text commenting of listeners. Once again, it's people, producers of a show, appearing as chapters for crowdsourced info. I participated in this myself, where Adam and Dave on Podcasting 2.0 were saying something about one of my shows, and I was like, oh, it's not exactly right. I sent in a boost in at that time so that when people are listening in, if they happen to check out their app, they will see, oh, okay, Kyrin actually sent a message here clarifying what they were saying. And then we had, who was that? I think it was Chad F being able to then boost in after that and say kind of like, oh, I see your message. Thank you for that, Kyrin. There's so much kind of cool stuff going on where everyone can participate. Once again, this ability for digital mediums to all merge in together. And I very much imagine that in 5 years' time, there is going to be a word for whatever the hell is going on here. I don't know what it is going to be, but very much in the same that podcasting was a completely new way to access audio in a different format that was on demand, that was not through a radio station. I very much think that we're creating something here which will be of a similar magnitude, maybe even bigger, who knows, where in 5-10 years' time, it's going to be like, what the hell is this thing? This is completely different. V4V music is an example of this. Maybe it will be that, but I had this recent chat on the Mere Mortals with this guy called Alexander Watanabe, and he's an artist. He creates things, but he creates it through code. And so he puts this code onto a blockchain, and then this interacts with how with people when they interact with the art, they can actually participate in it. And he had this example where it was, imagine if you had a Picasso painting and you were able to add a stroke to it yourself, whilst it still retained the appearance and the recognition of everyone of being a Picasso painting. So you adding it has not defaced it. You've actually added to the art yourself. That is a extremely huge draw. And in this context, we were talking about being able to do this via a blockchain. And as you are participating with the art, you get to choose what is actually being created. And this will affect the kind of whole set of the code that is, and the code allows for this. And I think there's a very similar parallel to what's going on here with everything that we're doing, value for value, podcasting and music and text and video and things like this. It's adding that interactive element from the audience where, I'm kind of doing it now via boostergrams. I read out your boostergrams and I very much thank you for those messages that you're coming in. What if you can do it with, I suppose, my guidance? I don't want you just coming in and rushing and completely taking over the show. But what if you have the creativity to add to the show, much like Dreb has done, much like the Dorfels are doing with their music, much like Abel and the Wolf did with their artists coming in and creating chapter art, much like Cole is doing with Value for Value music. There's just so many ways to collaborate, to participate, and it's not limited. We're taking down the barriers, and it's amazing. It's so cool. Which gets onto the final portion of this is my I suppose value for value vision of the future. I think it's an adding to the pie. It's not necessarily going to take away from advertising or paywalls or things like that. Those certainly still will exist. But I do want to give a reminder. Okay, let's look at what's happened to completely new radical distribution methods of digital content. And we'll just take radio here, digital newspapers, and even TV. I believe that advertising has made them all trash. They are listening to the radio now is impossible for me. Newspapers, if you want to look at something online, try looking at a Forbes article and you will get hit with a paywall immediately. TV is just a cesspool of, what is it? Probably like 12 minutes for every 30 minutes of programming, 12 minutes of it is ads. And it's like, how can we get more of this into there? They're kind of proud of being able to put 12 minutes of ads in. It's like, are you kidding? I've heard advertisers talking about how it's amazing job that they've been able to do that. And in this case, it's usually like a digital marketing show talking about monetization or some bullshit. And it's just, look, I think we're at the dawn of a new age. I'm not the type for hyperbole. I'm very much a calm, rational person, but value for value, there's a reason I created the Value for Value show. And I truly believe we're going to see an unbelievable explosion of creativity brought about by the combination of RSS, Bitcoin, and Value for Value. And I don't know what's going to come from this, but man, I'm excited. I think it's just, even just Value for Value music has knocked my socks off and is consuming large portions of my time. Literally just now before this, I was listening to a new show called Upbeats by Salty Crayon. And it's another addition to this twist of creativity, of people sharing, collaborating, and just creating a new medium. I'll leave it at that. It's just so damn cool. Oh man, I love it. So I do want to thank some people on this last episode of season 4.
Welcome to the Value for Value Boostagram Lounge.
And we got a couple of boosts in. I saw Sam Sathi is listening into the live. Thank you very much for that, Sam. I was going to mention I am live with all of these. There will be a new timing for this coming up in the future, which should be on a Monday instead of a Wednesday for myself. So just a little highlight for that. But a couple of boosts that we come in here, and they're from some classic supporters. We have Macintosh, and he says, sorry, it's been a bit. I'm overwhelmed. I overwhelmed my Fountain app and couldn't get in it for over a week. Great episode. 4,242 sats sent using Fountain. So that's a double boost from him because he normally sends in a 21 because he is the host of the Generation Bitcoin podcast, and 21 is a very special number for them. So thank you very much for that, Macintosh. Fountain is coming out with its 1.0 release soon. So any issues that you've been having with that, I know I've been having some myself just with them crashing, should be resolved very soon. So just stick with it, my friend. We have another one here from who else but Cole McCormick, host of America Plus. And he says, video is necessary because we are visual creatures. There has to be a different way to host/distribute video. I'm sure there is a new solution around the corner. 3,333 sats sent using Fountain as well. Very much thank you, Cole, for the lucky threes there. Once again, he'll be distributing Magic Mushroom Fun Time on Christmas of this year. So I know he's definitely going to put it up on Twitter and X, and maybe as a podcast itself. We'll just have to see with that, but very much worth checking in and tuning into his podcast as well to hear more about that. And then the final one here we had from Colomona, and he says, I love your podcast, 1,000 sats, once again sent using Fountain. Colomona, once again, So Libre, host of the Lightning Thrashers podcast. I should just make sure. Yes, Lightning Thrashers podcast, which is a metal V4V music podcast. So if you're like, oh, this V4V music, they're just playing pop songs or they're not playing anything that I specifically love, well, there's a metal podcast for you to tune into. We're starting to get into the niche stuff here. So this is so cool, so gratifying, so appreciating. Thank you, everyone, for really joining in and helping to support this show. It does make a big difference to myself to be able to host this, to receive these messages. That's the most important thing, to know that people are listening and it's helpful. And we even got a live one here. It says, Slayer Libre, V4V is the future of all payments, Lightning Thrashers, Lightning emoji. I don't know what that is. The emoji where it's like the pinky and the pointer finger pointed up. Rock on. 3,333 sent using Podverse. Thank you, Colomona. Very, very much appreciated. Go check out Lightning Thrashers is my recommendation. Okay, we're going to get into my tips section here. And I eat my own dog food. So everything that I've talked about on here, you've seen me, everything that I've highlighted, it's something that I've used. I've tuned into all of these shows. I've played around with all of these apps. And I very much appreciate when this is an educational show. I'm doing this to try and help newcomers, to perhaps even people who are already well aware of what value for value is, to unlock a new niche, to think about something different, to highlight what I think is really happening here and what's important about it. And all I just want to know is coming up to this next season, to season 4, is how can I make this show better? What do you want to hear? What are things that you think I'm missing about or not talking about, value for value related? And my current plan at the moment is that I've been reading quite a few books about technology and how they change the world, especially digital stuff. So when I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of things like Common as Air by Lewis Hyde, which is all about IP and how it's not actually that helpful and stifles creativity. I'm thinking of like books about Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death, where he was talking about why he believes that TV is actually a kind of trash, and he links this to advertising, funnily enough, which is very relevant to this show. I'm thinking about books like The Long Tail by Chris Anderson, and he was really focusing on what happened with Napster and music and that explosion of creativity that was unlocked, of people being able to access music in this long tail. So what I was thinking of for season 4 was highlighting some particular points on these. I wouldn't call it philosophical. It's more technological, I guess, is what I was roughly thinking. So the episode would be based around a particular topic on, okay, what happens when distribution mediums get unlocked, and what happens when collaboration is made easier? What happens when the ability to send micropayments or to have direct peer-to-peer payments occurs? So that is generally what I'm thinking. But once again, I want to hear your thoughts, and I might, if Blueberry is got it sorted by then. I know Todd is working on it. I might even be able to start highlighting some things and playing around with value for value music and putting in a split and being able to do it live and things like this. So that's kind of what I'm planning for season 4. But once again, tips, please give me your tips on how I can improve this show. So season 4, I think I'll start in about a month or so. Yeah, I've been under a bit of stress recently, so I would have liked to have started it soon, but I definitely think I need a break. So I'll be back for sure, and I'll be back sooner rather than later. I'm not going to take another huge break like I did between season 1 and season 2 and season 2 and season 3. So yeah, that's very much what I am planning for that. My app and service highlight. If you haven't done it, I really, really do recommend going on to podcastindex.org/apps. So this is the place where you'll have heard all of this many times before, because people are saying, go to new podcast apps or podcastapps.com. This is where you're actually going. This is where it's getting linked to. And if you haven't done it, it's worth just checking out everything that is on here. So, it says supporting apps, directories, and hosting companies. And we've got Podfans right at the top that Sam was talking about. And it's ordered by the amount of tags and things that each one supports. But it's worth just going in here and going, okay, look, we've got Podfans, a completely new progressive web app / hosting thing, hosting for, or ability for podcasters to add extra bits to their feed, which is because their hosts are not particularly playing, their hosts are not at the cutting edge of technology, let's put it that way. So we've got that. We've got Sovereign Feeds, which is semi-hosting, and allows you to create your own feed. Blueberry just beneath that. Once again, another hosting company that is well on board and at the top of this list, and hence why I am using it for this very show and why I'm moving one of my other shows over to there. We've got Podcast Guru, another app. We've got just so many things. RSS Blue just added the ability for value music and musicians. This is more for people who want to play value for value music to be able to create time splits, and I'm sure they do hosting as well for music. We've got PeerTube. I talked about that in one of the recent episodes. So this is being able to do value for value payments in a video platform. A host of apps. We've got Steno.fm. This is where you can create transcripts kind of within the app and be able to create things like that. We've got LN Beats, which is where you can play all this value for value music. So it's a music app. The Split Kit, Transistor, Dystopia. There's just so podcast chapters. It's just so many things going on here. It's absolutely insane how much interconnected weaving of specific stuff is on here. it truly is mind blowing. So if you think I'm kind of hyping it up, Kyrin, where is value for value? Why isn't value for value on Spotify? Why aren't these big companies doing it? They're going to take a while. It's just the nature of the beast. But there's so much stuff here now where it's like, you don't even need those. Like I haven't used Spotify for a long time because all of these apps that I'm using are just better. They are just truly better. And it takes a while for people to find out just how much better they are. So that is my app and service highlight. Please check out podcastapps.com and you'll see some very, very cool, very interesting things there, which you can play around with, not just for a podcasting app, but for all of these other abilities to create and do interesting things with transcripts, with services, with all sorts of stuff. Incredible. So I'm going to wrap it up here with my value for value section. As usual, I'm going to give 15% to someone, and I'm going to give it to the Podcast Index themselves. So the visionaries who started this project to combine RSS, Bitcoin, and value for value. Adam and Dave are... look, Adam's a visionary for helping to create podcasting. So he's already got the chops. Dave is just a wonderful human being, and these two guys who just started this thing 3 years ago roughly, and look where we are now. Like, there's so much creativity, so much awesome, amazing things going on, and they deserve all the recognition. They, as much as podcasting 2.0, it probably will be, and value for value as well. Adam came up with the term with John C. Dvorak on his show on the recent Mere Models episode where I had a chat with him. He was already saying, like, people are saying value for value or V4V without realizing the origin of the term, which is showcasing just how broad scale and how far out it's going. So it's super amazing, and they really do deserve all the props and for what they're doing and what they're creating. It's so amazing. So I'm going to end it here. Once again, time, talent, and treasure. This is the Value for Value podcast. These are the 3 things that help this podcast tick along. Please just share an episode with a digital creator. That's what all I ask for you for this episode. If you know a musician who is struggling and not enjoying Spotify, send them to the Value for Value podcast, or to somewhere where you believe that it will help them to understand what is going on. That's all I ask. And if you know someone who is interested in these things, it has to start with the creators and letting their audience know, hey, you can come support me here. So if you know someone who is like that, please share the show with them, or even any of the other resources I've talked about. Once again, this is educational. I want you to just create the best thing, do the best thing for someone who is showing an interest in wanting to learn. So very much would be appreciated if you could do that. Talent, I've already listed off. How can I make this show better? What do you want to hear? What is missing? Any book recommendations for what I was talking about with those ideas about technology and how that has changed and altered things? Please send them to me. I want to hear them. And then finally, treasure. We've seen quite a few people boosting into this show, listening in live, and you can do this in a new podcast app. I just listed it off before. The 8 that I covered in my highlighting section were, let's see if I can do this off the top of my head, Fountain, Podverse, CurioCaster, Podfans, Castomatic, Breeze, Podcast Guru, and there's one more. I'll bring it up quickly right now so I don't leave that last one out. And the last one there, well, you can do it on the Podcast Index website as well, and then Podfriend, of course. Almost missed Martin's app at the end there. You can also do this on the Podcast Index website, or you can do this directly to me. If you go to meremodelspodcast.com, I've got a video there showcasing how to use the new apps. I've got an explanation of a text explanation of everything that's going on. I've even got a little lightning address there for someone who's absolutely new, has no idea what Bitcoin, Lightning is, all those things. If you copy that in link, it'll give you a highlight of how to do that. And I think I put 2,000 sats on there if you want to try that out as well. So lots of things you can do, lots of stuff to play around with. And I very much do appreciate when you boost into the show and not only show your support, but give me some content for the next episodes, the next season. And I'll be back soon to read those out. Thank you, everyone, for joining me to the end of this season. It was another fantastic learning experience for me, going live, trying out all these things. And I really do hope that I've helped to enlighten and to help some people out. That's why I'm doing this. So we'll leave it there for today. And until shortly, ciao for now. Kyrin out.